have you done, you useless brat?
The first thing people noticed about Danielle Brooks was how quiet she had become. Not shy, not timid, quiet in a way that felt practiced, like someone who had learned when speaking only made things worse. She moved through the Brooks Whitman house in Buckhead, Atlanta, with a softness that bordered on invisibility. Her footsteps were light, her voice even lighter. She smiled when spoken to, nodded when corrected, and lowered her eyes when ignored. No one ever asked why. They only knew she hadn't always been this way. 3 years earlier, Danielle had arrived at the estate with a ring on her finger and hope still intact. She had married Marcus Whitman, the youngest son of a family whose name carried weight in certain circles. Old money real estate, city contracts, influence that didn't need to announce itself. Marcus had told her she would never have to prove herself. That love was enough. That family didn't matter. He had lied without raising his voice. The humiliation didn't begin all at once. It never does. It arrived in small, almost reasonable pieces. A comment here, a look there, a correction disguised as advice. By the time Danielle realized what was happening, she was already adjusting herself to fit a space that had been shrinking quietly around her. On the morning it finally crossed from cruelty into something else, Danielle was on her hands and knees in the marble hallway outside the formal dining room, scrubbing a wine stain that had already dried. She was still wearing the dress she'd slept in. "Don't miss a spot," Gloria Whitman said, standing above her with a porcelain mug in one hand and judgment in the other. Gloria was Marcus's mother. Her voice never rose. She didn't need it to. This floor cost more than your upbringing. Danielle didn't respond. She focused on the cloth in her hand, moving it in slow circles the way she'd learned. Fast movements only invited comments. Across the room, Elaine Whitman, Marcus's older sister, leaned against the doorframe scrolling on her phone. "Honestly," she said without looking up, "I still don't understand how you slipped through. I mean, we're not a charity." Marcus sat at the head of the table, tie loosened, watching everything like it was happening on a screen he couldn't control, or didn't want to. He tapped his fingers against the wood, glancing occasionally at his watch. "Mom," he said finally, not looking at Danielle, "we're going to be late." Gloria took a sip from her mug. Then she should have cleaned faster. Danielle felt the familiar pressure behind her eyes. She blinked it away. Crying was a mistake she'd made early on. It never helped. It only seemed to confirm something they had already decided about her. She stood slowly, knees aching, and went to rinse the cloth in the sink. Her reflection stared back at her from the stainless steel. Hair pulled back, eyes dull, shoulders rounded like she was bracing for something. "You're coming tonight," Elaine said, suddenly. Danielle paused. "I thought—" "You thought wrong," Gloria cut in. "The family gala is tonight. Investors, donors, people who matter. And the caterers are short one server." Marcus cleared his throat. "It's just for appearances, Danny. You'll blend in. It's easier." Danielle turned to look at him then. Really look. She searched his face for something, hesitation, discomfort, anything that suggested he understood what he was asking. He looked past her. "I'm your wife," she said quietly. Gloria smiled. "For now." The words settled in Danielle's chest with a weight she couldn't shift. She nodded once. "Okay." That was when something changed. Not on her face. Not in her posture. Nothing anyone else noticed. But inside, something that had been holding for 3 years finally loosened. Not anger. Not courage. Resolve. After they left the room, Danielle stood alone for a long moment, listening to the echo of their footsteps fade. Then she walked into the small utility bathroom near the service hallway, closed the door, and reached into the pocket of her dress. The phone inside wasn't new. It wasn't fancy. It didn't even have a case. She hadn't turned it on in years. She powered it up. One ring. Status. A man's voice said. Calm. Low. Controlled. Danielle's voice changed when she spoke. Not louder. Just firmer. "They're hosting the gala tonight. Atlanta. Downtown." There was a pause. Then, understood. "I'll be in uniform," she added. "I'll be where I need to be." The call ended. Danielle slipped the phone back into her pocket, washed her hands, and studied herself in the mirror once more. The woman staring back still looked small, still looked tired, but her eyes were different now. She walked back into the hallway, picked up the cleaning supplies, and finished the floor without being asked again. That night, the gala hall filled with laughter, tailored suits, glittering dresses, and conversations that sounded important without actually saying much. Danielle moved through the crowd with a tray balanced perfectly in her hands, her posture straight, her expression neutral. No one recognized her. That was the point. Marcus laughed too loudly near the bar. Elaine posed for pictures. Gloria accepted compliments like she'd earned them. They didn't notice Danielle standing 3 feet away, listening, watching, remembering everything. The first conflict had passed. The humiliation had been delivered cleanly, publicly, without apology. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. But I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Danielle adjusted the tray in her hands as the lights dimmed slightly, signaling the evening was about to shift into its next phase. She didn't smile. She didn't rush. She waited. And somewhere near the back of the room, a man in a dark suit took a single step forward, his eyes already locked on her. Danielle had learned something about rooms like this. The people who owned them never looked at the people who carried things through them. They looked through. The ballroom downtown glowed like a polished promise. Crystal chandeliers, white linens, ice sculptures shaped like swans, a live string quartet tucked into the corner playing something soft and expensive. The air smelled like perfume and money and warm lighting. Every table had a centerpiece that looked like it had been flown in, not arranged. Men in tailored suits stood in small circles, holding whiskey glasses they barely drank from. Women in gowns that could have paid off mortgages laughed with their teeth instead of their eyes. Danielle moved through them with a tray of champagne flutes, her black vest fitted, her white shirt starched. Her hair was pulled back into a clean bun. The uniform did what it was designed to do. It erased her. She kept her face neutral, her eyes lowered just enough to appear obedient. She served a man in a navy suit who was talking about acquisitions and tax shelters like he was describing the weather. She served a woman with diamond earrings shaped like teardrops who complained about a valet taking too long. She served a couple arguing quietly about whether their next condo should be in Miami or Santa Monica. She heard everything. She didn't react to any of it. Across the room, Marcus Whitman stood with a drink in his hand, laughing too loudly, shoulders loose, posture confident like someone who had never had to earn a room in his life. Elaine was beside him, taking photos with her phone, checking angles, smoothing her dress, turning her chin until she looked like a version of herself that didn't exist in daylight. Gloria stood near the sponsor wall, greeting people with a smile that felt rehearsed. When she laughed, it sounded like a coin dropping onto marble. Danielle didn't go near them. Not yet. She could feel the moment approaching the way you feel a storm before you see it. The air tightened, the noise shifted. The room's attention began to organize itself toward the center. That was when she noticed a man in the dark suit again. He was standing near the back, just beyond the last row of tables, where the shadows were softer. His posture was still, but not relaxed. He wasn't scanning the room the way most security did. Fast, obvious, anxious. His eyes moved slowly, like he already knew where every threat could come from, like he had time, like time belonged to him. He was tall, broad shoulders, close-cropped hair, clean-shaven jaw that looked like it had been taught discipline instead of luck. His suit was tailored, but it wasn't the kind of suit worn for attention. It was the kind worn for movement. His hands stayed visible, but ready, no fidgeting, no checking a phone, no smiling at anyone. And when Danielle's eyes flicked up for the briefest second, his gaze was already on her, not in a way that made her flinch, in a way that made her spine straighten. She looked away immediately, letting her face return to invisible, but something inside her acknowledged him. She moved toward a service hallway, slipping to the small door behind the bar to refill her tray. The catering staff in the back moved fast, irritated, sweating under fluorescent lights. A manager barked orders while checking a tablet. Someone dropped a stack of plates. Someone else cursed under their breath. Room 1804 needs pre-party top-off. The manager snapped, shoving a tray toward Danielle. VIP suite. Don't mess it up. Danielle looked down at the tray. Top-shelf champagne. Crystal glasses. A bottle of imported whiskey that looked like it belonged behind glass. She saw a folded card with a room number printed in bold. The Whitman Suite. Her fingers tightened on the tray's edge. Not anger. Control. She took it without hesitation and headed to the service elevator. Inside the elevator, the soft music of the ballroom disappeared, replaced by humming cables and the faint smell of bleach. Danielle stood alone, tray steady in her hands, eyes forward. The elevator climbed. Every floor up felt like a step closer to something that couldn't be undone. When the doors opened on the 18th floor, the hallway was quiet, carpet thick enough to swallow footsteps. The lighting was warm and flattering, the kind that made everything look expensive even if it wasn't. Danielle walked toward the suite door. Before she could knock, it opened. Elaine stood there, holding her phone up as if she'd been recording. "Oh my God," Elaine said, smiling wide. "Look who it is." Danielle stopped, keeping her expression neutral. Elaine stepped aside dramatically, like she was inviting in a celebrity. Danielle walked in. The suite smelled like expensive cologne and hairspray, and the sharp sweetness of alcohol. Marcus was near the window, adjusting his cufflinks. Gloria sat on the couch with her legs crossed, a glass of champagne in her hand, laughing at something on her phone. Two other women sat nearby, friends of Elaine's, the kind that wore designer heels even when they were sitting. And standing near the mirror was a tall woman in a shimmering silver gown, lipstick perfect, hair curled into glossy waves. Danielle recognized her instantly, not because she knew her personally, because Gloria had said her name 100 times like a prayer. Harper Caldwell. Old money. Real estate empire. The family Gloria wanted Marcus to merge with. The family Marcus wanted to impress. The family he'd been circling around long before Danielle ever became his wife. Harper turned, glass in hand, and her eyes landed on Danielle. She blinked once, then laughed softly, like she thought it was a joke. "That's her," Harper said, voice dripping with amusement. "That's the wife." Elaine burst out laughing. "Right? I told you." She looks like she's still waiting for a shift manager to approve her break. Danielle set the tray down calmly on the coffee table, placing each glass with careful precision. Marcus didn't look at her. He didn't have to. Gloria did. Gloria's eyes narrowed with satisfaction. "Well," she said, "isn't this convenient? Harper, sweetheart, you were asking where the charity case was." Harper took a sip, then tilted her head. "You actually brought her here? Tonight?" Gloria smiled. "Not as a guest. She's helping." Harper's laugh got louder. "That's foul." Elaine waved her hand. "No, it's necessary. You don't understand the optics. Harper, if she's standing next to Marcus, people ask questions. And if people ask questions, people dig. We don't need that." Danielle looked at Marcus then. Still no eye contact. He adjusted his cufflink again, jaw tight, like he was irritated by the inconvenience of her presence. Gloria leaned forward slightly. "Danielle," she said, voice sweet, "be a dear and wipe Harper's shoes. I think something spilled." Danielle looked down. Harper's heel was spotless. The request wasn't about cleanliness. It was about order, about hierarchy. Elaine's friends leaned forward, excited the way people get excited when they know something cruel is about to happen, and they won't be the one doing it. Danielle didn't move. The silence stretched. Gloria's smile hardened. "Did you hear me?" Danielle's voice came out calm, low. "I heard you. Then do it." Danielle lifted her eyes. "No." The room stopped breathing. Marcus finally turned. His face flushed, not with shame, but with anger. "Danielle," he warned, voice tight, "don't do this here." "Do what?" she asked softly. "Stand up?" Elaine scoffed. "Oh, please. You don't stand up. You survive. That's your role." Harper watched Danielle, with a smirk like she was enjoying the show. Gloria stood slowly, setting her glass down. She walked toward Danielle with measured steps, like she was approaching something she owned. "You are in my son's life because I allowed it," Gloria said. "You were my family name because I let you borrow it. You eat in our home because I decided not to throw you out." Danielle nodded once. "And you reminded me every day." Marcus stepped forward. "Just apologize," he said under his breath. "Just do what she says. We're minutes from going downstairs. Investors are here. I can't have drama." Danielle looked at him, really looked. "For 3 years," she said quietly, "I waited for you to say one sentence." Marcus swallowed. "Not now." Gloria's tone sharpened. "Wipe the shoe." Danielle's eyes didn't blink. "No." Elaine laughed again, louder this time. "What happens when she says no, Mom? You're going to slap her like you do at home." Gloria's eyes flickered with the smallest satisfaction. "If she needs to be reminded, yes." Danielle didn't flinch. That was the problem. Gloria raised her hand. In that split second, the room's entire energy tilted. Elaine's friend sat up. Harper's smirk widened. Marcus stiffened but still didn't move. And then Gloria's wrist stopped midair. Not because Danielle grabbed it. Because a hand like iron closed around Gloria's wrist from the side. No one saw him enter. He was simply there. The man in the dark suit. Up close, he looked even more dangerous. Not because he looked violent, but because he looked controlled. Like he had spent his whole life choosing when not to break something. Gloria gasped, shock flashing across her face. "Oh, do not touch her," the man said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Marcus stepped back, eyes wide. "Who the hell are you?" The man didn't look at Marcus. His eyes stayed on Gloria. Gloria tried to pull her wrist away. She couldn't. "You can't," Gloria started. The man leaned slightly closer, voice dropping even lower. "You're about to." Gloria's face went pale. "Let go of me." Elaine shot up. "Security? Somebody call security." Harper's smile evaporated. She backed away half a step, suddenly uncertain. Danielle stood still. Not frozen. Still. The man released Gloria's wrist, but his body remained positioned between Gloria and Danielle, like a wall. Marcus's voice rose, panicked now. "This is private property. You need to leave." The man finally looked at Marcus. One glance. Marcus went quiet. It wasn't intimidation. It was recognition. Like Marcus had suddenly realized he was speaking to someone who didn't belong in his world because this person could end it. Danielle exhaled slowly. She didn't thank him. She didn't smile. She stepped past him calmly and walked toward the small service hall closet where the staff kept extra linens. Everyone's eyes followed her, confused. Elaine called after her, voice trembling. "Where do you think you're going?" Danielle didn't respond. She opened the closet door and reached behind the stacked towels, pulling out something wrapped in a plain garment bag. Marcus's face twisted. "What is that?" Danielle slid the bag zipper down. Inside was a gown. Not the kind you buy last minute at a mall. The kind you see on red carpets. The kind stitched by hands that don't rush. Midnight black silk with subtle shimmer, cut perfectly, designed to move like power. Harper's eyes widened. "What is that?" Danielle looked at her for the first time. "Not your concern." Gloria's lips parted. "Where did you get that?" Danielle didn't answer. She walked into the bathroom suite without asking permission and closed the door behind her. Elaine rushed forward as if she might stop her, but the man in the dark suit stepped once. Just once, and Elaine stopped like she'd hit an invisible fence. Marcus's voice shook. "Who are you?" The man spoke without emotion. "Caleb Royce." Harper's eyes snapped to him. "Royce? As in?" Caleb didn't confirm. He didn't deny. He simply stood there like a final decision. Gloria's voice turned shaky, angry. "This is ridiculous. You can't just barge in and Marcus do something." Marcus looked like his brain was scrambling. I don't know what this is. I don't know what game she's playing." Harper's face tightened. "This isn't a game. That gown, that's..." Elaine whispered, suddenly pale. I've seen that label on celebrity stylist pages. Gloria snapped. Enough? Someone call the front desk. Get hotel security up here. Now! Elaine fumbled her phone, fingers shaking. I'm calling. Caleb's voice cut through it. Don't. Elaine froze. Or what? Caleb didn't answer immediately. He glanced at the suite door, then at the hallway beyond, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Danielle could hear it too, faintly, through the bathroom door. A vibration, a single buzz. Her burner phone. She didn't check it. She didn't need to. She already knew what it meant. He was here. Danielle stared at herself in the mirror, still in the catering uniform. Hair pulled back. Skin glowing under the soft bathroom light. Eyes steady. For 3 years, she had been playing a role. Not for them. For herself. To answer one question she hadn't wanted to ask out loud. Would Marcus love her? She was nobody? She already had her answer. Now she was about to give them theirs. She unbuttoned the white shirt slowly, not rushed, not shaky. Underneath, she wore a fitted black slip dress. Simple, sleek, intentional. She slid the uniform off, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter like it was finished business. Then she lifted the gown from the garment bag and stepped into it. It fit like it had been waiting for her. She adjusted the fabric over her shoulders, then opened the small velvet pouch hidden in the bag's inner pocket. Inside was jewelry. Not flashy, not loud. A necklace with a single stone, deep blue, almost black, cut clean, heavy enough to mean something. Danielle held it for a moment, feeling its weight. She didn't smile. She put it on. On the other side of the door, the suite had become chaos. Gloria paced. Elaine whispered frantic questions. Harper's face had turned tight, calculating. Marcus kept rubbing his hands together like he was trying to scrub off fear. Caleb stood unmoving, eyes on the bathroom door, expression unreadable. You're not going to tell us what's happening? Harper snapped. Caleb's gaze flicked to her. You're not owed an explanation. Gloria pointed at him, voice trembling with rage. This is my son's wife. She's nobody. She worked at a bookstore. Caleb interrupted calmly. She worked where she chose to work. Marcus stepped forward, voice cracking. Why are you doing this? Why are you helping her? Who sent you? Caleb's eyes stayed on Marcus. You don't want the answer. Marcus swallowed hard. Try me? Caleb's tone remained flat. You won't survive it. The bathroom door opened. Silence poured into the suite like a cold wind. Danielle stepped out. For a second, no one spoke. Harper's glass slipped slightly in her hand. Elaine's mouth fell open. Gloria's eyes widened so far the skin around them tightened. Marcus stared like he was watching reality rewrite itself. Danielle didn't look like a server. She didn't look like someone who begged. She looked like someone who had been waiting. Her gown caught the light with every small movement. The blue stone at her throat pulled the eye, not because it was huge, but because it felt inevitable. Her hair was still pulled back, but now it looked intentional, severe, regal. Her face didn't carry anger. It carried decision. She walked forward 2 steps and stopped. Gloria whispered, "What is this?" Danielle answered softly, "The end." Marcus took a step toward her, voice rising. "Danielle, stop. Whatever this is, stop. You're embarrassing yourself." Danielle's eyes met his. "Embarrassing," she repeated. Then she nodded once, slow. "You're right." Marcus exhaled like he thought he'd gained control. "Good. Then change back. Come downstairs. Stay out of sight. We can talk later." Danielle's gaze didn't move. "No." Marcus's face hardened. "You're not doing this to my family." Danielle's voice stayed even. "Your family did this to me." Gloria's voice cracked. "You think a dress changes what you are?" Danielle tilted her head slightly. "No. But tonight, you're going to learn what I've always been." Harper's voice came out tight. "Marcus, who is she?" Marcus swallowed. She's nobody." Caleb finally spoke again. "That's what you thought." Danielle, turned slightly toward the door. "We're going downstairs." Gloria stepped in front of her. "You are not walking out of this suite dressed like that. People will ask questions. People will think." Danielle's eyes stayed calm. "Let them." Gloria reached for her arm. Caleb moved. Not fast, not loud, just enough. His hand caught Gloria's wrist again, and Gloria froze like her body finally understood fear. Caleb's voice lowered. "Last warning." Gloria's lips trembled. "Marcus." Marcus stood there, stunned, caught between panic and pride. "Danielle, please, don't do this." Danielle looked at him with something that wasn't hatred. It was grief. "You had 3 years," she said softly, "and you chose silence." She stepped around Gloria and walked out. Caleb followed one step behind her, not beside her, not in front. Behind, like protection, like obedience. Harper's voice rose, frantic. "Marcus, what is happening?" Marcus stared at the suite door, breathing hard, his world tilting. I don't know," Elaine whispered, terrified now. "I think we're about to—" Down the hallway, Danielle walked toward the elevator. Not the service elevator. The main one. Guests passed and stared. Heads turned. People slowed their steps, drawn by an energy they couldn't name. Danielle didn't hurry. In the elevator mirror, she saw Caleb behind her, eyes steady. "You're sure?" Caleb asked quietly. Danielle didn't look back. "I was sure the moment he called me nothing." The elevator doors opened onto the ballroom level. The noise hit them like warmth. Laughter, music, clinking glasses, soft applause somewhere near the stage. Danielle stepped out, and the room began to shift. People didn't know why yet, but they felt it. Conversation slowed. Eyes turned. A ripple moved through the crowd as if the space itself recognized something entering that didn't belong to them. Marcus, Gloria, Elaine, and Harper emerged from the elevator behind, moving faster now. Faces pale, trying to catch up, trying to control something already gone. Danielle walked straight toward the center of the ballroom, toward the sponsor table, toward the Whitman family circle of investors and donors, toward the night that was supposed to be their victory. And on the stage, the host tapped the microphone, voice booming with practice excitement. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, our next guest is someone we've been honored to host privately this evening. A name known for influence, discretion, and power." Danielle slowed to a stop. The room quieted. The spotlight shifted toward the grand entrance. Caleb's voice moved close to Danielle's ear, so low only she could hear it. Once the doors opened, he said, "There's no going back." Danielle didn't blink. "Good," she whispered. The ballroom doors began to open, and Marcus Whitman finally felt it. Real fear, sharp and clean. Because for the first time in his life, he understood he was about to watch a world choose someone else over him. The ballroom did not erupt when Danielle stepped into the light. It stalled. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. Laughter softened. Conversation thinned. Glasses paused halfway to mouths. People turned, not because someone announced her, but because the room sensed a disruption it didn't understand yet. Danielle moved forward at an unhurried pace. Not slow, not rushed. Each step measured, deliberate, final. The black silk of her gown caught the chandelier light just enough to make people look twice, then a third time. The blue stone at her throat pulled attention without asking for it. Caleb remained one step behind her, not guiding, not leading, following. Marcus stood frozen near the sponsor table, a glass clenched in his hand. He watched faces change around him. Investors he'd laughed with minutes earlier now watching Danielle with narrowed eyes, trying to place her. Gloria appeared beside him, breath shallow, eyes darting. Elaine hovered a few feet back, pale, phone forgotten in her hand. "This isn't happening," Marcus whispered. Danielle stopped at the center of the room, directly beneath the brightest chandelier. She didn't scan the crowd. She didn't look for approval. She waited. The host on stage cleared his throat, visibly unsettled. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice strained, "thank you for joining us tonight. We are honored to welcome a private guest whose presence requires special acknowledgement." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Danielle lifted her chin slightly. The doors at the far end of the ballroom opened. Security personnel stepped in, not rushing, not announcing themselves, just enough to shift the room's energy from celebration to awareness. Heads turned again, phones lowered, whispers sharpened. Marcus felt his pulse spike. "Who is this?" someone murmured nearby. "I don't know," another replied. "But look at how they're moving." Caleb stepped forward then, finally moving ahead of Danielle. He raised a hand, not commanding, not dramatic. The room obeyed anyway. "Please remain where you are," he said evenly. Gloria grabbed Marcus's arm. "Do something," she hissed. "Say something." Marcus swallowed hard. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Caleb turned back toward Danielle, nodded once, and stepped aside. Danielle spoke. Not loudly, not emotionally. "My name is Danielle Brooks," she said. "Some of you know me as Marcus Whitman's wife." A few heads turned toward Marcus. Others leaned in. "For 3 years," Danielle continued, "I lived quietly inside a house that taught me what silence costs. I listened, I watched, and I learned." Marcus shook his head. "Stop," he whispered. "Please." Danielle didn't look at him. "The Whitman family has presented itself tonight as a pillar of integrity," she said. "As builders, as benefactors." She paused. "Tonight," she said calmly, "that presentation ends." Caleb extended a tablet to her. Without ceremony, Danielle accepted it. Gloria's breath hitched. "What is that?" Danielle's eyes flicked to her briefly. "Truth." She tapped the screen once. Across the room, phones began to buzz. One by one, then in clusters. Investors glanced down. Frowns appeared. A man near the bar cursed under his breath. "No," Marcus said quietly. "No, no, no." A voice rose from the back. "Whitman accounts are freezing." Another, "Their assets. Something's wrong." Gloria staggered back a step. "This is a mistake." Danielle finally turned to Marcus. "You told me I was nothing without your name," she said. "Tonight, you'll see how much that name was worth without me." Marcus's glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. The sound echoed. Danielle handed the tablet back to Caleb and stepped away from the center, already disengaging. Caleb leaned toward her. "It's moving fast." Danielle nodded. "It always does once people stop pretending." Behind them, voices rose. Confusion. Panic. The sound of control collapsing. Danielle didn't look back. She walked toward the exit with the same steady pace she'd entered with. Caleb followed. And for the first time that night, the Whitman family understood something too late. They hadn't been attacked. They had been exposed. Danielle didn't stop when she reached the edge of the ballroom. She slowed. That distinction mattered. Behind her, the room had fractured. Voices rose in uneven pitches. Questions colliding with denials, denials collapsing into panic. Men who had spoken confidently about forecasts and projections minutes earlier now stared at their phones like they were waiting for bad medical news. A woman near the stage sat down abruptly, heels scraping against the floor, her face drained of color. Marcus stood where Danielle had left him, frozen in a space that no longer belonged to him. "Danielle," he said louder now, "you don't understand what you're doing." She stopped walking, not because of his words, because she had reached the moment she'd planned for. She turned slowly, just enough for him to see her face. "I understand perfectly," she said. "That's the difference." Caleb shifted subtly, placing himself half a step closer to her, without blocking her view, not protective. Present, Gloria pushed through the thinning crowd, composure unraveling. Her voice trembled despite her effort to keep it sharp. "You think this is clever? Ruining people in public? You'll regret this." Danielle studied her for a brief second. No anger, no satisfaction. "Regret comes from not acting," she said. "I waited long enough." Marcus shook his head, his confidence breaking apart piece by piece. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to walk in here and dismantle my life." Danielle nodded. "You're right." Hope flickered across his face. "You dismantled it yourself," she continued. "I just stopped holding it up." A man from the Whitman legal team pushed forward, voice strained. "This is a misunderstanding. We can talk privately." Caleb looked at him. The man stopped talking, not intimidated, corrected. The room quieted again, not because someone demanded silence, but because silence had become necessary. Danielle exhaled slowly, feeling the weight she carried for 3 years loosen just enough to let her back into her lungs. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt clear. She turned away from Marcus for the final time. That was when it happened. A sharp movement. Too fast. Too desperate. Marcus lunged, not at Danielle directly, but close enough. Caleb moved. There was no drama to it. No shouting. One controlled step. One precise motion. Marcus's wrist twisted out of alignment with his intent. A knife clattered across the floor, skidding beneath the table. The sound was louder than the crowd. Gasps rippled outward. Marcus dropped to his knees, breath torn from his chest, his face contorted in shock more than pain. He stared up, eyes wild, finally understanding the scale of what he'd lost. Caleb didn't look down at him. He looked at the security personnel, now flooding the room. "Threat neutralized," Caleb said calmly. Hands closed around Marcus's arms. Someone read him his rights. Someone else guided Gloria away as she began to cry. Not loudly, not theatrically. Just small, broken sounds. Danielle stood still as Marcus was pulled past her. He looked up at her, eyes desperate. "Why?" he whispered. Danielle met his gaze. "Because you chose silence," she said. "And silence has consequences." She turned away before he could say anything else. Caleb fell into step beside her. They walked through the exit together. Outside, the night air felt cooler, cleaner. Sirens echoed in the distance, not urgent, not dramatic, just inevitable. Danielle paused at the curb. Caleb waited. "You did what you came to do," he said quietly. "Yes," Danielle replied, "but it's not finished." Caleb glanced at her then. "Just once." "I know." She looked back toward the building, not at the chaos inside, but at the doors themselves. "There are people behind them who think this ends here," she said. "They're wrong." Caleb nodded. "They usually are." Danielle stepped forward into the waiting car. The door closed softly behind her, and as the vehicle pulled away, she didn't look back, because she already knew what she'd left behind. Danielle didn't speak during the drive. The city lights of Atlanta slid past the tinted windows in quiet streaks, office towers, late-night traffic. Sidewalks still alive with people who had no idea what had just happened a few blocks away. The car moved smoothly, unmarked, unhurried. Caleb sat across from her, posture relaxed but alert, eyes occasionally lifting to the reflection in the glass. For the first time that night, there was nothing to perform. Danielle rested her hands in her lap, fingers steady. The adrenaline had burned off quickly. What remained was clarity. Not relief, not triumph. Clarity. "They'll try to control the narrative by morning," Caleb said calmly. "Statements, apologies, distractions." Danielle nodded once. "They always do. And there are people connected to them who won't like losing access," he added. "Some of them have long memories." Danielle finally looked up. "So do I?" The car slowed as it approached a private entrance near a high-rise overlooking the city. The driver stepped out, opened the door. Danielle exited without hesitation. The building was quiet, understated, guarded by presence rather than spectacle. Inside, the elevator rose without sound. Caleb watched the floor numbers climb. "Once the next phase starts," he said, "there's no more anonymity." Danielle considered that. "I gave anonymity a fair chance." The elevator doors opened into a wide, minimal space. Clean lines, low lighting, windows stretching from floor to ceiling. The city spread beneath them like a map. Danielle walked to the glass and stood there, not admiring the view, but measuring it. Behind them, a tablet on the counter vibrated softly. Caleb picked it up, scanned the screen, then set it down. Accounts tied to the Whitman name are being audited. Quietly. A few allies already stepped away. Danielle didn't turn. "They will..." Caleb hesitated. "There's something else." That made her turn. "A separate set of transfers," he said. Older, hidden well. They weren't just benefiting from influence. They were laundering it. Danielle's expression didn't change, but something sharpened behind her eyes. Through who? Caleb shook his head. Not a who, a network, and the Whitmans weren't running it. She absorbed that in silence. They were a front, Caleb continued. Convenient, replaceable. Danielle walked back toward the counter and picked up the tablet herself, scrolling slowly. Names, entities, patterns that repeated too cleanly to be coincidence. So tonight wasn't a collapse, she said. It was the signal. Caleb met her gaze. Exactly. Danielle set the tablet down. Then we don't rush. No, Caleb agreed. We let them move first. She nodded. Fear makes people sloppy. Outside, a helicopter passed overhead, distant and brief. Danielle returned to the window. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of the last 3 years. Every swallowed word, every ignored glance, every time she'd chosen patience over dignity because she believed love required it. That version of her was gone. Caleb watched her carefully. There's one more thing, he said. Once this reaches a certain level, you won't be dealing with families or reputations anymore. You'll be dealing with systems. Danielle smiled faintly. Not happy. Ready? Good. Systems understand pressure. The tablet vibrated again. Caleb glanced at it, then handed it to her. They've noticed. Danielle looked at the alert, movement where there shouldn't be any, interest where silence had been expected. She handed it back. Then we're right on time. She took a slow breath and straightened her shoulders. Please subscribe to HUP Stories, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. Danielle turned away from the window. Tomorrow, she said, they'll realize tonight was mercy. Caleb nodded. And after that? Danielle paused and spoke evenly. After that, we finish. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that something had shifted beneath it, something quiet, controlled, and irreversible. And somewhere beyond the skyline, forces that had never expected her to matter were beginning to pay attention. Morning didn't bring relief. It brought confirmation. Danielle woke before sunrise. The city still dim beneath the window. No alarms. No urgency. Her phone rested untouched on the table beside her. She already knew what it would say. Caleb stood near the window, jacket on, posture calm. He had been awake longer than she had. He always was. They've started distancing, he said quietly. Not publicly. Privately. That's how you know it's real. Danielle nodded. When people stop defending, they start calculating. She poured herself a glass of water and drank slowly. There was no victory in her movements, no celebration, just adjustment, like someone stepping into a space that had always existed but was finally hers to occupy. Marcus is asking to see you, Caleb added, through lawyers, through intermediaries, through anyone who'll listen. Danielle didn't respond immediately. Do you want to? Caleb asked. She considered the question carefully, then shook her head once. No. Caleb accepted that without comment. Outside, sirens passed in the distance. Routine, not dramatic. Inside, the silence held. They're also trying to trace what happened last night, Caleb continued. They won't find a single move they can challenge directly. That's frustrating them. It should, Danielle said. Confusion is part of accountability. She picked up her phone at last. Messages filled the screen. Names she hadn't heard from in years. Apologies disguised as concern. Curiosity dressed up as support. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she looked at Caleb. How long until the next pressure point? Hours, he replied. Maybe less. Danielle exhaled. Good. She walked back to the window and rested her hand against the glass. For the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge the absence of fear. Not courage, absence. Fear no longer had a role. Caleb watched her. Once this finishes, he said carefully, things won't be quieter, just different. Danielle turned to him. I don't need quiet. I need truth. He nodded. Her phone vibrated again. This time, she looked not at the sender, but at the alert beneath it. Movement, repositioning, a network reacting to pressure it didn't expect from someone it had dismissed. Danielle's gaze sharpened. "This is the part they won't forgive," she said. "Not the exposure." Caleb's voice was steady. "What part, then?" "The part where they realize I'm not emotional about it." She set the phone down. Please subscribe to HUP Stories, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. Danielle reached for her coat. Caleb moved with her, already anticipating what came next. "Where to?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Wherever they thought I wouldn't look." The car waited downstairs. The city was waking up. Somewhere across town, people were scrambling to protect reputations, assets, narratives. None of that concerned her anymore, because the story they told about her had already ended, and the one she was about to write didn't require permission. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a twist. What would you have done if you were in the same situation? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next story.